Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to do a review of AEW Dynamite. Due to this being a tribute show, we will not be reviewing the matches. We'll only look at the angles and look at basically some interesting pieces. I'm not going to go through and do things the way we normally do it when it comes to a show review. This was a show for one person, which is the son of Brodie Lee. So, as long as the kid had fun, I don't care what they put on the show, if we're being honest. But before we go through the show, I want to catch some people up who might not have been paying attention about the Bruce Mitchell situation. So, for those of you who don't know, Bruce Mitchell of PW Torch wrote this article where he insinuated that Amanda Huber, the wife of Brodie Lee, and Tony Khan and AEW were conspiring to keep people in the dark about Brodie Lee's death and about, this being quite possibly a COVID death that they're trying to cover up, even though after she said that it was not a COVID death. This led, of course, to an outpouring of vitriol towards Bruce Mitchell, deservedly so. He is a buzzard. Then all of a sudden, he continued to double down. Some people actually jumped on his side. I was not one of them. I'm not going to relitigate the whole thing. I made a video about it, and that was my thoughts on the subject. I really was not intending to touch the subject again because I thought that, he had a history of doing this stuff. Of course, Wade Keller, who I guess is the editor-in-chief over at PW Torch, took the article down, citing that it didn't meet his editorial standards, and he did not personally look at the article before it was posted. So he backed off and he took the article down. Following that, Bruce Mitchell doubled down, said that he stands by every word that he wrote, and he stands by the timing of it, when it was posted. This led to Amanda Huber putting out her own article, basically once again denying that it was a COVID death. And I'm not going to read her piece here, but I'll link it in the description for people who want to read it. But it's basically talking about their life together, how they, how he just suddenly got sick out of nowhere. The story is that he was working out, that he just, was working out on his Peloton one day, and he couldn't keep up, and he started getting sicker and sicker, and then all of a sudden he had to go to the clinic. They haven't said what exactly he died of yet, but it was some lung-related issue. But it apparently began to come about from him not being able to keep up with his workouts. So after the wife, Amanda Huber, put out her statement, it was then announced that, a lot of people passed that around for a little while. Then it was announced that Wade Keller had fired Bruce Mitchell from PW Torch. So it was a little too late. Look, I'm not one for wanting to fire people. I'm just, it's teetering on cancel culture. Like I said, the guy's a buzzard. He's been a buzzard for a long time. I'm guessing it was okay for him to speculate all those times about WWE, but as soon as he does it about AEW, it's time to get rid of him. Even though this was particularly disgusting, he had done this stuff before, so it's not like, it was basically Keller responding to criticisms from a certain fan base. That's my opinion. It could not be true. It could be true. It doesn't matter. But this isn't the first time a journalist has said some wild, crazy accusations. But this is one of the first times where you've seen actual consequences. In doing so, some people have started attacking PW Torch, saying that they need to stand by their columnists. That's one position to take. I think that it was perfectly rational to take it down. I think it should have been taken down. But the firing thing, I mean, it is what it is. I don't like Bruce Mitchell. I just don't want to set that precedent. I don't want to set that precedent that we're just going to start firing people because certain people get offended and get upset. I think that the ridicule, is enough. But I do think that also you have a situation where this guy was going to tank the paper. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to flee from PW Torch if he didn't get fired. So That's why Wade Keller fired him. And then there were some people who were mad that he got fired. The guy, after getting fired, doubled down. So he quadrupled down. He quintupled down, and then posted the same article somewhere else, essentially demanding transparency and all this type of stuff. And you know what? It's real ugly. It's real ugly and it's real stupid. And I don't see any reason to waste any more time on it. The guy got fired. The article was dumb. I really want to know what happened, but I don't want to press the issue. So, R.I.P. Brodie Lee. I hate that his wife had to put out her own article just to discuss some stupid shit for this fool. That was a waste of her time. She couldn't. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get to the show. Let's get to the show. So they did a 10 bell salute, which is beautiful. Of course, I love the 10 bell salute when people die. They set it off with Jon Moxley doing the talk, talking during the tribute. And Jon Moxley was fantastic. He was very, very, very fantastic. Some of his stuff was talking about the outpouring of the love and the joy that Brodie Lee had brought to different people's lives. And that, he said he spent nearly a decade with them. He was a dad, he was a dad first, and that wrestling was just a job. But he said pro wrestling is a community. Wrestling is something everybody loves. They come together to celebrate things that they love. And, so they come together once again to celebrate his life. And, and he hopes that people learn to stop and smell the roses, appreciate every single day. And it was really touching stuff. I'm kind of on the fence about this whole wrestling being a community thing. I kind of don't like where that goes, but it fits this moment because there was a lot of people seemingly together grieving and, using wrestling to get through this, and that's really, this is the good stuff. This is where you can break down kayfabe and move forward and show how you appreciate the real person. Let the performers go out there and put on their best efforts. And then it felt really sentimental because his son was standing right there. And that's really what kept getting me all night, is the various people interacting with his son. I thought that was beautiful stuff. The first match was Matt Hardy and Private Party losing to the Young Bucks and Colt Cabana. That was pretty much the thing all night. The Dark Order won every match because he was the leader of Dark Order or whatever. Then afterwards, the Acclaimed were going to rap, and then SCU beat them up, threw them in the ring, and then Colt Cabana and the Young Bucks beat them up. So I was like, okay, that was cool. Whatever. I didn't care about the Acclaimed anyway. Thankfully, SCU saved us from their rapping. Then we get to see Darby Allin, and Darby Allin talked. He didn't really have much to say other than he wished he could have wrestled him, and that, he wanted to elevate everyone, that Brodie Lee's strength is that he didn't come to take anybody's spot, that he comes to elevate everyone, and that he really wished he could have worked with him. I can appreciate that. He didn't know him that well. So, he said he met him when he came to AEW, so he didn't know Brodie Lee that well. But, I thought that his words were real. They were real to him. And that's pretty cool. The next match we saw Lance Archer, Stu Grayson, and Evil Uno defeat Eddie Kingston, the Butcher, and the Blade. In this match, Lance Archer came out dressed as Luke Harper, which I thought was incredibly touching. I thought that was incredibly sweet. He should have wrestled the match like Luke Harper, though. Like, that would have been sweet. Like, if he did, like, the discus clotheslines and, the zombie cell and, basically just worked as Brodie Lee. That would have been excellent. That would have been fantastic stuff. But Eddie Kingston at the start of the match said that he loved Brodie Lee, he misses him, but the Dark Order is nothing without him. Like, they kept trying to get heat, so that was kind of a good thing. They heated up the heels so that they could take bumps and they didn't get beat up after the match and stuff like that. I love the finish. This is one of the few times I actually noticed the finish. It was like a gory bomb into what was that? Like a diamond dust. It was kind of sweet. It was a Dark Order's finish. And then after post match, Eddie Kingston gets slapped around by all the baby faces, or at least all of the winning team. Let's put it like that. And then Jake Roberts nailed him with a short arm clothesline, which I thought was pretty sweet because Jake Roberts never really gets physically involved. And you know, if he if he did a DDT, we'd be probably doing another tribute show next week. But so it was nice, you know. Arn Anderson and another guy who I probably should know. I think it might have been, was it Alan Angles or whatever his name is. Um, they basically talked about how much Brodie Lee loved his kids and how much he loved his family, and that you know he never allowed wrestling to affect his personal life. That he always wanted to be a dad first, and you know the guy said that Brodie Lee should be on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling dads. That means a lot to me. You know, like, you know, fuck all the Luke Harper stuff. You know, the Luke Harper, Brodie Lee stuff. That's really important. You know, the idea that he was that dedicated to his family. That they talk about like, hey, you know, the show would end at 2 a.m. You know, he couldn't wait to get home. He couldn't wait to get back to his family. And you know, Eddie Kingston talked about that in his piece where he was talking about that he was gonna miss Brodie Lee, and he said he was a warrior inside the ring and out, and that when he mean by he's a warrior outside the ring is that he took care of his family, you know, and that you know he loved his kids and he loved his family, and he really you know was there for them, and he really wanted you know little Brodie to know that he was there for them, and I love that. I thought that was sweet. So then the next match was Hangman Page, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver against the Inner Circle, MJF, Santana, and Ortiz. Yeah, MJF wearing a wearing a Puerto Rican flag on his tights. He had the Puerto Rican headband on too, so that was pretty cool. The Dark Order threw papers at Santana and Ortiz. I didn't get it. Like the crowd popped when it happened. It was like a big pop. I didn't understand that at all. And then Jericho explains that it's from Being the Elite, which of course I don't watch. And apparently that was kind of a Brodie Lee thing, is he would hit people with rolls of paper. And, you know, I think that's kind of brought it to the show. So I was like, okay, that's cool. During the match, MJF cut a promo on Little Brodie, called him a nobody. And then on Twitter he said, fuck that kid. And you could just tell that the kid loved it. You know, like the kid was out there wearing an Evil Uno mask. You know, so it was really cool. As the match went along, the referee got distracted. Wardlow came to the ring, and then out comes Eric Redbeard, aka Eric Rowan, and Jericho, being Chris Jericho and having WWE on the brain, like he just used all WWE shit all throughout the night. He's like Eric Rowan, and Excalibur's like Redbeard, like trying to cover it up, like Redbeard. Like, dude, you're not gonna get sued for this, okay? Relax. like, I'm sure McDevitt and Vince are not about to be like, they used our names on TV? Hit them with a cease and desist. Like, no, they're not about to do that, man. It's basically a fucking funeral. Come on. Jericho was so off all night, dog. He was just used to Luke Harper. That's basically what it was. He was used to Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. So that's what he called them. Shit. You know, but this was very, very touching. This was my favorite part of the night, you know, is when Eric Rowan came out there to make the save, ran off Wardlow, and he had up the sign that says, goodbye for now, brother. You know, and I was like, oh, that is so touching. That was great shit, man. I loved that. But also, MJF went out there and he snatched off the mask of baby Brodie and got himself hit with a kendo stick. And, you know, it was a comedy spot, obviously, but it was cool. You know, it was like they're trying to really make this thing special for the young guy. He's 8, I believe. So his brother is basically a baby. You know, he's not going to remember this. So this, like I said, this was a show for one person. You know, it was a show for baby Brodie. And he got to be involved, and you know, it was very sweet. It was very, very touching. After that, we had Anna Jay and Ty Conti beat up Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. After the match, Britt Baker complained, said that it was a conspiracy against her and that the match was rigged, which is hilarious to say about pro wrestling, that this match was rigged. Like, oh, like wow, this is regular 2020 segment here. Then afterwards, Thunder Rosa basically attacked her and ran her off. So then Jericho did his tribute, where he talked about having the pleasure of wrestling Brodie Lee 27 times. And he said one of the times was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And that he was laying in bed looking at the roof, the ceiling. And there was like this little mark where he said he thought it was a bug. And he says he didn't know what it was, but it was really bothering him. So he just like, I can just picture Jericho being drunk in Saudi Arabia, looking up at the ceiling and just being totally focused on this thing on the ceiling, like drunk, like with the red eyes, kind of like, are you mocking me? And then he said that Brodie Lee came to his room just to hang out and explained to him that it's an arrow pointing to Mecca. And says that that's basically, him in a nutshell. He always knew like little bits of trivia and things like that. And he loved the guy and thought it was, really cool. And I thought that was great. He said that he was instrumental in bringing him to AEW. And, he thinks that in AEW, Brodie Lee finally proved that he could be a money-drawing person, that he could really make money in the wrestling business. He could be a main event guy. And, he said he's going to miss him. And I think that means a lot. And I think Jericho might have been the person outside of Moxley maybe that knew him the longest on the roster. So I think that was pretty cool, but it wasn't as emotional. But it was like you gotta peek behind to know who Brodie Lee really was, which I thought was nice. So the main event of the show was Team Taz, was Brian Cage, Hobbs, and Ricky Starks, losing to Cody Rhodes, 10 of the Dark Order, and Orange Cassidy. So before the match started, Orange Cassidy, bumped knuckles with Baby Brodie outside the ring, and it was just kind of weird. You had Sting come out there. They turned the lights out so Darby could come out, and then they turned the lights out again so Sting could come out. And Sting and Darby got to walk to the ring very slowly as the heels ran off. So that was interesting. They're kind of keeping up some of the storylines. Usually WWE throws storylines like out the window for tribute shows. AEW is kind of keeping some of their storylines active. They weren't going to make the show completely non-canon, but the show is basically non-canon. I'll explain what that means later. Anyway, after Cody wins, he talks about how, Brodie Lee is a beautiful man with a beautiful family. And he said he left a beautiful legacy. And then, that he introduced them. The wife came to the ring with Brodie's boots and a handkerchief. And they left the boots and the handkerchief in the ring. And Tony Khan said that Brodie Lee was the greatest TNT champion they ever had, considering the belt's like 8 months old. I guess so. I'm trying not to be negative, but that's like a weird sentiment. It's like it's only been like 4 champions. But anyway, he named Brodie Lee champ for life. And says he's going to retire that version of the TNT title in tribute to Brodie Lee. And I thought that was very sweet. I thought that was incredibly sweet. That he's like, he gave him the actual belt, gave him the belt, and says they're going to be a completely new TNT title, because this version is Brodie Lee's belt. And I love that. You can't, in wrestling, there are no jerseys for you to hang up. So all you really got is like the boots and the various gimmicks. For them to say like this belt represents him, I like that. That's very touching. Like in regular sports, they you hang a banner from the air, hang a banner from the sky, or something like that. I think that maybe AEW should do that. That maybe they should do a thing where they kind of have a banner of him, like WWE did it, like when wasn't it one of those shows where they put like a banner on the wall for, like, I think it might have been Eddie Guerrero. It wasn't up there long though, but kind of like something where he could always be present. But it was a real touching episode. And then of course they went into the actual tribute, which was Old 55, be played in the background while they had various clips, which seemed to be clips that people sent them. It was a lot of the same pictures that was on YouTube, on Twitter rather. Pictures of him in WWE, pictures of him, of course, wrestling in AEW. It was really good. It was really well done. It was really classy all throughout the night. Nothing really, like I said, it was a show for one person. It was a show for baby Brodie. And I'm hopefully, man, this is tough. It's got to be hard for him, and his mom. But they did what they could as far as making it, a show for one kid and then letting everybody else watch. That was very sweet. I give them credit for that, So I'm not going to rip anything on this show. To be quite honest, it was them trying to keep the show canon. They really should have just said, fuck it with the canon and not did any storyline stuff and just did straight up, did more tributes. Like, that would have been better. Like, if you'd have had, like, the individual members of the Dark Order, like John Silver, for instance. Like, I think that if you could have cut out the Acclaimed, like, getting beat up, or Eddie Kingston getting beat up, and did, like, the Dark Order talking, like Anna Jay and John Silver and, Alex Reynolds. The people that, apparently Brodie Lee actually, wanted to work with some of these people, and he had a very close relationship with them, and he was grooming them. So I think that I really want to hear more of that, but that's just a nitpick. I think that the show was for one person, so the kids outside the ring. You can't just put everything on the screen. So they gave him something to, I think he actually booked the show. Didn't he? Think he booked the whole show, or he just booked one match or something like that? I would love it if we got to see the kid book the whole show. Like, that would have been great. Like, let the 8-year-old book. That would have been awesome. Just to see the mind of an 8-year-old. He probably would have did something silly. But it would have been definitely very, very interesting. But, hey, the show was a great tribute show. Very classy from top to bottom. So we're gonna go lights out here, right? We're gonna take like 2 seconds to go dark because I need to get things off my chest for light. So we're gonna go dark from in 2 seconds. Okay. All right. So I saw these assholes online, right? And I didn't watch the AEW Dynamite episode live. I like to fast forward through commercials. So I open up Twitter. And the first fucking thing I see is dipshits like, oh, look at what AEW did. He was only there for a few months. Look what WWE did. He was there for almost 10 years. And I was like, oh my God, we're doing this now. We're going to compare who's got the better tribute. That's what we're going to do now? Fuck you. I'm not doing that. No, that's like going to the funeral and those people who do that performative crying. Like, you got some people who are just like dabbing their eyes because it's sad. You just dabbing your eyes because it's a tough thing. And you got other people in the aisleway. I love you, Grandma. My grandma, I love you so much. What am I going to do without you? Ugly crying. Like rolling all on the ground and shit. Wanting to jump in the casket and shit. Like, that type of performative sadness comes across as fake to me. All right, like we all think this sucks. Okay, we all think this sucks, and of course WWE put out all of this information days before that they weren't really going to do anything on Raw. That they were recording tributes and different things like that to do for SmackDown probably. Now I don't know if they're actually going to do it on SmackDown. I'm just saying that would probably be the time to do it. They didn't do it on NXT either. They just did, in memory of. But the performative crying on Twitter of people who feel like they have to be the most emotional person over Brodie Lee, and that everybody needs to be as emotional, like everybody needs to see me weeping. It's like, stop. Just don't. This is not the time. This is not the time for your fucking inter-company beef. It's not the time. It's not. This is serious shit. There's kids who lost their dad here. Okay, let's focus on that shit. And I've seen people trying to use John Moxley, wrestling as a community, to try to simmer down the AEW WWE beefs. I'm like, no, you're not. That's not going to help, because some people don't want to be a community with other people. Like, you just can't share space with certain people. Like, you just can't. We need to just accept that. Like, accept that certain people just can't share space. You know, there's going to be, that's why there needs to be more than one wrestling company. Because sometimes you don't want to deal with the assholes that watch Impact. You might not want to deal with the assholes that watch AEW. You might not want to deal with the assholes that watch New Japan. Because New Japan Twitter is pretty goddamn toxic. You know, WWE Twitter is the worst of the worst, because it's mostly negative. It's like 99% negative. Impact Twitter, they just happy you showed up. You know, New Japan, they just like, they're elitists. You know, they like people who eat slices of pizza with knives and forks. They're assholes. Like, it's not really one big community. It's not really. And then I saw other people who were like, oh, can we get some, some stuff at, Wrestle Kingdom? I was like, oh God, we're really going too far now. I don't know what they might do in Japan, and I think it would be nice for them to do something, but we have to be okay with people not doing anything, right? Like, it needs to be okay with the in love and memory, or in memory of something to that effect, because not everybody had that same relationship with him. I saw Brian Myers being a douchebag on Twitter, talking about, oh, WWE didn't do a video package. I'm like, God damn, can they put it together? like they're trying to put some shit together, maybe. We don't know what they're going to do. Now, they may skip SmackDown and just say, hey, we're not going to do anything. Or it might have been they had an opportunity to do it first with Raw, but he didn't work there, so they're going to let AEW do it, and then they do their tribute. That seems to make a lot of sense to me. It's like the family is with AEW, even though a lot of his friends work in WWE. The family is going to be at the AEW thing. Why not let them go ahead and do that? Why try to beat them to the punch? It's not a competition anyway, but why try to beat them to the punch? They could have did it. They could have did it on Raw. They could have did all this stuff, all the stuff that AEW did. They could have did it on Raw, right? But it wouldn't have been the same, because Brodie hadn't been there. So they let the company that he was working for do it first. Now they could do something or they could not. Either way, we have to be okay with people not doing anything. I saw folks talking about, oh, we need to put the pressure on Impact so they can do something. I'm like, Impact is probably taped for months in advance. This guy died out of nowhere. Like, they can't go back and just start doing stuff, man. Like, you have to be okay with people not doing a lot, or not doing as much, because there are people who are doing the most on Twitter, especially on Twitter. And you know what? But I also seen some good stuff, and I want to close on that. Guys I've seen, like, it's almost always Mick Foley. Mick Foley is one of the best dudes ever. I expect to see a similar outpouring when we lose Mick Foley that we see with Brodie Lee. I expect a similar outcome, and I will be genuinely mad if people are not as nice about Mick Foley, because he's, him and CM Punk, I don't think CM Punk actually started it. Obviously, and Mick Foley just kind of jumped on it. They're going to donate all of their money that they get from t-shirts and various merchandise to the family. And then AEW also is partnering up with American Lung Association. And that's beautiful shit. That's good stuff. Everybody deserves top marks for that. Everybody who's going to donate money, help take care of the family. Tony Khan is talking about signing the kid to a contract. He's a kid. He can't consent on a goddamn contract. But it's basically going to be a stipend for the families, So, that's good. That's the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. Now, I could be smart ass and say, well, I don't think AEW been around in 10 years, but I hope it does. People, when you really kind of learn a lot, when you go through these memorials, you go through a lot, and it can be a binding moment or breaking moment, because sometimes you go to that funeral and that cousin is rolling around on the ground and performative crying about, how much they love grandma or Uncle Toot Toot or whatever the hell. And then all of a sudden, you just like, I don't want to share air with these people ever again. After this funeral, I don't want to see them anymore. I just went through that with my granddad. You know, I just literally went through that where I was like, if I don't have to share sunlight with these people ever again, good. Like, nobody wants to go through that shit. So we need to, we need to maintain that, you know, these things can break people apart or they can bring people together. I'm hoping that this at least brings people together, at least on this one occasion, that we don't, you know, destroy one another, at least, you know, for this particular day, because it's Wednesday and you know what that means. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.